Now.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We broadcast on over 900 stations. On Pacifica and NPR stations, low-power FM, college and community radio stations, on public access TV and PBS TV stations, and on both TV satellite networks, on Dish Network, Channel 9415, Free Speech TV, 9410 Link TV, on Direct TV, Channel 375, and also on 348. And we're video and audio podcasting at democracynow.org. Well, Admiral Mike Mullen, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's previously accused WikiLeaks of having blood on its hands, was on CNN's GPS on Sunday. This was his response when host Fareed Zakaria asked him if WikiLeaks' latest document release endangers American troops.
Absolutely. Not just American troops, but it also endangers the lives of other individuals that we've engaged in our overall efforts, whether they be in Afghanistan or other countries. So I think it's a very, very dangerous precedent. What I don't think those who are in charge of WikiLeaks understand is we live in a world where just a little bitty piece of information can be added to a network of information and really open up an understanding that just wasn't there before. So it continues to be extremely dangerous, and I would hope that those who are responsible for this would at some point in time think about the responsibility they have for lives that they're exposing and the potential that's there, and stop leaking this information.
That's Admiral Mike Mullen. Dan Ellsberg, your response.
You know, the process, first of all, we have Admiral Mullen there, who is in the interesting position of sending American troops, men and women, into harm's way. So when it comes to blood on hands, he's really got a lot to answer for. From another point of view, he's quite an expert on that. At the same time, you have to realize that he has almost unlimited resources on his side to minimize that damage by assigning people to find out who is in danger in these documents. He's had months and months to look at them and how to protect them. His command in Kabul has reported that they have not felt it necessary to protect or inform an individual, nor has any individual been harmed. And you can believe that if their plumber's operation, to the tune of more than 100 men working on this, had been able to find one mutilated body, that one would be on the cover of Newsweek by now. So we've had a pretty good test of how well the process of sanitizing these documents by the newspapers and by WikiLeaks has operated, and the answer is the proof is in the pudding. No harm has been done. Admiral Mullen's fears are groundless.
Karen Ross, you were a British diplomat for 15 years. You resigned before the Iraq War. You now have founded and are head of a nonprofit diplomatic advisory group called Independent Diplomat. These are diplomatic cables. Talk about the significance of what they are and the fact that they've been exposed and what you found the most interesting.
Well, I think this is an extraordinary and colossal event that will have a profound effect on the discourse, the practice of diplomacy. I don't think it's at all clear that one can say they've not caused harm or have caused harm. This will have effects. There will probably be good effects and there'll probably be bad effects when this amount of information is dumped into the public sphere, information that was hitherto confidential. This will have political and perhaps security effects as well. What this means is I think it will be very difficult for American diplomats henceforward to practice diplomacy. I think the fact that these cables have come out will mean that other diplomats will find it harder to share confidences with American diplomats. It also, I suspect will mean that American diplomats will forbear from putting the most sensitive and juicy material into telegrams, or at least those telegrams will be given a much narrower distribution than they have hitherto. That will have, of course, negative effects for the operational effectiveness of the US government, and perhaps also for the WikiLeaks and historians of the future who want to find out what the US government and its diplomats were actually doing or thinking. So I think this will be very, very significant in the long term. It will ramify in all sorts of different ways.
In the United States, the mainstream media is basically just talking about the ways this will damage the United States. Yet you, a British diplomat, are saying this could be beneficial. Why?
Well, I resigned from the Foreign Office over the Iraq War. People were not told the truth about the reasons for going to war in Iraq. I was our Iraq expert at the UN Security Council for many years. I personally think that far too much in diplomacy is kept secret. There's this kind of...
And you testified.
I did. I've testified twice at 2 official inquiries.
And presented information about weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, and when I first presented it, I was attacked by my government, and now what I said is more or less accepted as you know, the understood truth of what happened. You know, that the government did not tell the truth about WMD, that it ignored available alternatives to war. The trouble with all of this is we tend to place government in this sort of superior elite position, that they know things that we do not know, that governments are entitled to know things that the public do not know. I think the balance is way too far in the government's favour. Far more information should be released and made transparent. I'm not sure, however, that the way WikiLeaks has done this is the right way. This is a very random, blunt instrument to attack the problem of the lack of transparency of government. This should ideally be done through the mechanisms of democratic accountability. Of course, it's not being done that way so far, hence WikiLeaks.
Talk about Yemen. The revelations around Yemen?
In Sana'a, there will be very, very many unhappy people in the government right now. The telegram recording General Petraeus' conversation with President Saleh is hugely damaging to the government of Yemen, in that it makes clear that US aircraft and UAVs are carrying out strikes inside Yemen against al-Qaeda militants, perhaps. We don't really know who they are, but the Yemeni government is claiming these strikes as its own. The fact that the US is doing this, and this has now been confirmed, many people speculated that this was the case because Yemen didn't itself have this capability, but the fact that this is now confirmed in writing is enormously damaging to the Yemen government.
And you have the Yemeni vice president saying that he then lied to his parliament about this as well.
Yes, Yemen is not exactly a perfect democracy, to say the least, so whether the fact that he lied to his parliament is a major revelation or not, I leave to others to judge. But the fact that US airstrikes are confirmed inside the country will enormously increase the pressure on the Yemeni government. That's just one of the many, many ways that these telegrams, the release of these telegrams, will ramify, frankly, in unpredictable ways.
And let's talk about, since you worked at the UN Security Council, let's talk about the cables from Condoleezza Rice, previous Secretary of State, to Hillary Clinton, basically ordering diplomats around the world.
Well, from Clinton to Rice, actually, Secretary of State Clinton to Ambassador Rice at the UN. I think they are, that one, yes.
Continue, yes.
Well, this is a standard instruction telegram from Washington, the USG. All of these telegrams are signed off Clinton. It shouldn't be seen as a sort of personal message by Hillary Clinton. All instruction telegrams from Washington will be signed off with the name of the Secretary of State, so that's not a very big deal. What this telegram sets out is a long list of intelligence requirements for the US at the UN, which is, frankly, an extremely exhaustive list, right down to sort of the activities of NGOs in preventing AIDS or affecting the policies of the UN. So it's a very, very comprehensive list. The fact that the US is trying to gather intelligence information at the UN, frankly, is not a very big revelation. I mean, everybody is spying on everybody else at the UN, including on Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. The British Development Secretary, Claire Short, who also resigned over the Iraq War, has said publicly that the UK authorities were bugging the phones of Kofi Annan when he was Secretary General. So I don't think that this will come as a great revelation to people at the UN. It will, however, be rather embarrassing for US diplomats currently practicing at the UN.
But let's really talk specifically for people who are waking up this morning, did not hear anything about this. The kind of spying they're talking about, I'm looking at The Guardian, one of the participants in the WikiLeaks release. Washington running a secret intelligence campaign targeted at the leadership of the United Nations, including Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and the Permanent Security Council representatives from China, Russia, France, and the UK. The classified directive, which appears to blur the line between diplomacy and spying, was issued issued to U.S. diplomats under Hillary Clinton's name in July 2009, demanding forensic technical details about the communication systems used by top UN officials, including passwords and personal encryption keys used in private and commercial networks for official communications. It called for detailed biometric information on key UN officials to include undersecretaries, heads of specialized agencies and their chief advisors, top SIG, that's Secretary General aides, heads of peace operations and political field missions, including force commanders, as well as intelligence on Bonde's management and decision-making style and his influence on the Secretariat. A parallel intelligence directive sent to diplomats in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and biometric data including DNA, fingerprints, and iris scans.
Yes, such is the nature of modern intelligence gathering. But the fact that the US has this list of intelligence requirements at the UN, I don't think will be any great surprise. And the fact that the UN, the Guardian claims this as an enormous revelation, seems to me rather a pretense that the Guardian, we're not babes in the woods. States spy on each other. They're going to spy on the UN. What the Secretary General and his senior officials say is of interest to states, so they're going to do that.
I mean, this does include cables from this former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, from Hillary Clinton, Republicans and Democrats alike.
Yeah.
So a diplomat in another country who invites an ambassador, a president to the U.S. Embassy for tea, then that president is wondering if when they drink that tea, their DNA is going to be taken.
Well, that's a new twist on the whole intelligence thing. I agree, and it is rather extraordinary. I can't quite myself see how your saliva on a coffee cup is going to help you learn the intentions of the UN or the government of country XYZ. It's a rather extraordinary thing, and I'd be interested to find out how, in fact, that process works. But the fact that the US is collecting this data, I don't think we should all be surprised about this.